Hello, I'm William Gallagher. This is 58 Keys, and you are as stuck at home as I am, aren't you? Let's do something. 58 Keys is, as ever, it's about how writers like you and I can get more out of Macs, our iPhones, our iPads, all of this stuff. This time, it's specifically about iPhones and iPads, but it's also something slightly more than that. While I want to show you something that I think you'll find useful if you don't even already use it, I also want to show it to you now because it won't take your mind off things, at least for a little bit. This is shortcuts. Now, if you've seen shortcuts before, if you're a fan of shortcuts, I hope at least the example I'm going to give you is something that you might not have tried before and you might find useful. I think you'll like it if you haven't tried it. If you've never even touched shortcuts before, I originally wanted you to know about shortcuts because it's so useful. It helps us. It helps us as writers. Specifically, the example that's on my mind and the thing I want to show you now is to do with that thing that you know how it is. You keep getting ideas, but you can't write them down because you're doing something else, you're going somewhere else, you're doing this, you're doing that, all sorts of things. And you know, if you don't write down the idea at this moment, you are going to forget it. That isn't just me, is it? It happens to you as well. Yeah? Okay? Work with me on this one. After you and I have talked today, that's probably never going to happen again. This is what's going to happen instead. Whether I'm on my iPhone or using an iPad like this, I get an idea and, well, watch. Jot down the idea and then carry on with whatever else I'm doing, whether it's on the iPad, the iPhone, whether I'm running around. And then later today, tomorrow, next week, next year, I can open up a note and see every idea I've written all together, like this. Right now, during our coronavirus confinement, well, you're definitely not going somewhere, and maybe a lot of the time you're not doing anything else at all. So I suppose right now, you could just jot down the idea in any way you like. You could write the entire story, the script, the poem, whatever it is. You could sit down and do it, and that would be useful. Okay. But actually, right now, I think Shortcuts gives us this extra thing, this something else. Well, it gives it to me. I think it will do to you too. I'm pretty sure it will. When we're finished, right, we will have a shortcut that makes our phone or iPad ask us what this idea is. What's the great idea? It will ask us, and it will squirrel it away like this to look at it later. Fine, great. I like this. I use this a lot. But now, today, getting to that point means creating it as a shortcut. And even with our simple example I'm going to show you, that takes a certain set of thought processes. Creating a shortcut makes me concentrate, makes me forget everything else really going on just for a little while. It makes me focus, actually. Actually, right this second, talking to you, I realise that when I am creating a shortcut, it is absorbing me in exactly the same way Sudoku does. Did that interest you or just put you off? Sorry or good, depending. Let me show you shortcuts in action. This is a thing that only works on iPads and iPhones. But first of all, forget shortcuts. I have an idea of something we want, but we need to think it through first before we get to the shortcut stage. So here's Omni Outliner. Love Omni Outliner. Let me write down what we want to end up with. We want a shortcut to jot down ideas. Okay, now I know that seems a bit obvious, and maybe really it is with something that's going to be this simple, but shortcuts can get very complicated, and keeping that intention in your mind helps you. What does this idea actually mean, though? What does it entail? That's the phrase I'm looking for. Writing down the idea, really, isn't it? We've thought of something and then filing it away for us. Okay, 2 steps. We need our shortcut to do 2 things. That first step, though, let me make a little change. I'm going to ask this. Ask us what the idea is. we want our iPad or iPhone to ask us what the great idea is, rather than us having to open a document as we run around. We just want our phones to ask us, what's the idea, and then let the phone and the iPad deal with it for us. So next, filming it away. Sorry about that. Filing it away for us. Shortcuts is part of iOS. It is deeply embedded in the system, and it can do amazing things to control and to manipulate your iPhone and iPad to automatically do things for you, to save you doing lots of steps. But it doesn't work with everything on your iPhone or iPad, and what it does work on slightly depends on just what happens to be on your phone. So, for example, this business of filing the ideas away, I wanted to do this with Pages because I'm writing in the Pages word processor quite a lot at the moment for some reason, and I can't do that. Shortcuts won't let me handle Pages, not directly the way I think I'm going to show you. What it will handle on my iPad, and I'll show you how you see what works on yours. It controls Apple Notes, it controls Drafts and Evernote and a couple of other things. I'm going to pick Apple Notes because, well, it's good. Really, that seems like a fair enough reason. So let me make a little change to step 2. Let's change this to file the idea away in Apple Notes. Fine, only I don't want to litter Apple Notes with a new note for every single daft idea I ever have about socks or something. I mean, if I did that, then to find the note about my great novel socks idea, I'd have to remember that it was a great novel. So I'd have to remember what the idea was. And then if I remember, what's the point of all of this? So instead, I want to have that one note that you saw, that one note that contained each one of these ideas. I want it so that each time I get an idea, I want it just added to the end of this one single note. And that actually means that this is really a 3-step shortcut. I do first have to make a note to hold the ideas, and you've seen that, my ideas jottings. But then forever after, my shortcut needs 3 steps. It needs to get the correct Apple Note to add to. That's one thing. So it has to get the idea and file it away in the right note, which means number 1, ask us what the idea is. Number 2, get the correct Apple Note to add to. And 3, then file it away in that note. And so let me change this and add a last one. I'm going to change this. Okay, and actually that makes me think, let me just do this. Fine. What I like is that, yes, I have to think of these steps now as I'm planning it, and in a moment we build the shortcut, but I will never again have to think about these steps. I never have to remember that they exist at all. I don't have to think about what we did here today. I'll have an idea, and then my iPad or my iPhone will ask me what it is. I will scribble down something, and as I'm putting it in my pocket, putting it in my bag, it will do everything else for me. Before it's added to the note, I have already moved on to whatever else it is I'm doing. Now that we know what we want to do, though, let's make the shortcut. I should say, I'm showing this to you on an iPad specifically because it's a big screen and it's easier to see how to do this when you've got some room for it. Every single thing you're going to see you can do on an iPhone, and actually I tend to because it's the machine most often with me. But let's go into shortcuts. It's a bit more fiddly on the iPhone, on the smaller screen. Okay, so here's shortcuts. These are all the... Each blobber here is a shortcut that I've previously made, but let's just tap this plus button to create a new one. Now, this panel on the left here contains all the things that shortcuts can do. This wider part here into the middle and the right, that's where we make our particular new shortcut. So step 1 was it was ask us what the idea, wasn't it? If I tap in here and search for ask, there you go. I actually ask for input. Tap and hold on that, drag it over, we've started it. This is what will ask us what our great idea is. It's going to ask us a question. Actually, so let's make the question, actually, that's a bit harsh. Let's try this instead. How's that? What do you think about that? Better? What's on your mind? Right, that'll do. That's all we need for our iPad or iPhone to ask us the question and for us to then be able to answer it. But it needs to know, what to do with that answer, the other steps that we've talked about. And because we've talked about it, because we've planned it out, we already know. We know, and the next thing we need to do is find the right note to add that answer to. So if I search up here for notes, this, by the way, is how I knew that I could use Apple Notes, Evernote. Let's tap on Notes to rule it down. This, by the way, will be different on yours. It depends on what apps you've got. Bear, for example, I think appears in this. OneNote probably does as well. Any note-taking app. Oh, and actually, I should say, the reason I found that I couldn't do it with Pages is I searched for Pages and it didn't come up with anything. Now, we've picked Apple Notes. I know it's Apple Notes because I recognise the icon. Step 2 is find the right note. So let's tap and hold on Find Note and drag that over. Now, you saw this earlier. I set this up just before we started talking. I created a note and I called it Idea Jottings. Now, I want to find this note, so we'll add what's called a filter. See where it says body, change that to the name. The name contains, well, I know the title is, so name contains Idea Jottings and a space. I've got the space wrong. That's it. Right, so by here, iPad or iPhone asks us what our idea is, and now it will have looked up where we want to file that away. All that's left is for it to do that actual filing. And to add this new feature to the end of our note, that's what we want. We want a note full of them, the new ones added on the end. So we need to append the new idea to that note that it's found. Here's append to note, tap on there, drag that in. And here it works, except I don't actually think this bit's as clear as it might be. You see this, append something to something. It's obviously going to be append the idea to this particular note. But see what happens if I tap the word notes there. I think this is the first part that doesn't look even remotely the way you might have imagined for it. This is quite detailed and it's suddenly giving you all sorts of options. It's wrong for what we're doing now. What this really is doing is giving us a whole lot of options to do with the note. And as yet, all we want to do is deal with the idea. So first, let me tap, you see this keyboard icon here? Let me tap on that. And now, actually, I'm going to delete. If I hit delete, see it gets rid of the notes that was on there, and instead it leaves me with all of these various other options on the middle row here. Shortcuts has an option that's really good and actually quite long and complicated to explain. Also, I found it long and complicated to understand, but it's called Magic Variables. Basically, I suppose the quickest way to say is Shortcuts can figure out what it is you were interested in. And I know we're interested in one thing here, one idea and one note, but it can get much more complicated than that, and Magic Variables sorts it out. Here's how we tell it to use a magic variable. See the wand icon over here? If we tap on that, and then look at these lists after it. Look particularly after the question, it's got this provided input. Whatever idea we have jotted down, we have provided it to the shortcut. So that's what we want. And we tap on provided input and it adds it to here. It's starting to build up the thing we want. We now know this is append the idea I've typed in to, and we'll see what it's got to be in a moment. Now, our third step is saying append this input to, and we just need to say, go on then, use the note you found a moment ago. What we do is we tap in that note section there. And notice this time it's come up with a little list because there aren't as many options for it. The thing we want is select magic variable. Tap on there. We've seen this a moment ago. This is the same idea, the provided input and stuff. But here, in this section in the middle, it's where it's found the note. So this bit underneath is the note it's found. Tap on that. And actually that's done it. Let me show it to you working through this. What's on my mind? Some second idea or other. Okay, and that's it. It's done. You can't see that it's done, but if we go over here to notes again, there's the idea, and it's added on underneath this. Let me show you that one more time so that you can see that it is building up the stuff, that it is appending. Go back into shortcuts and I'll run this. I third idea. Again, it just happens and I've moved on, but if I go back into Apple Notes, boom, there it is. So that would be that. We would have our nice little shortcut. We have made a shortcut that notes down our ideas, files them away for us. But so far to run it, I would have to open the Shortcuts app, find this shortcut, and actually, I think it's currently called New Shortcut 3. Oh, yes, it is. So how will we remember to look up, you saw how many I have, how do I remember what is New Shortcut 3 and what's for? So we give it a name, and then we make it as well so that running it is a lot faster. Definitely faster than getting out paper and pen, because you were thinking this so far, I could scribble this down faster. Well, no. What you do is, let's tap on this. You see this ellipses button here, the blue three dots button. If I tap on there, let's give it an idea. It needs to be something short and simple. So ideas, that'll do me, something like that. And then this next line, this add to home screen. You can actually call the shortcut anything you like. You could call it my collection of brilliant ideas. But in this case, we need an icon name. So down here it says New Shortcut 3. Let's change that to ideas as well, why not, let's be consistent, and tap the add button. Okay, that's added to the home screen. We can tap the done button because we've finished with this section, and now we can also tap done here. Just before I show you the next bit, notice by the way, down here, here's the ideas section in the bottom left hand corner, and it is amongst all of these others. I tell you, once you've done one, you get so into this. But here it is on my home screen. There's the ideas folder. Actually, I don't like it being there. Let me just tap and hold, and we'll move that somewhere else. Let's drag it onto my front screen where I've got all these other controls that you've been seeing. And now we're done. There it is, just like an icon of any other app. And now it's really done. So my home screen, right? Whenever I have an idea, I tap that icon. Each time I've run this today, I've gone into Apple Notes. In fact, I'm going to do it now. Run into Apple Notes. There it is again. I've done that only, though, to show you that it worked each time. We never have to. Get the idea, tap the icon, scribble whatever it is down there, and even before we put our phone or iPad away, that idea is saved in that document for us. I especially like this for ideas in the middle of the night. Yes, you didn't see that. But I also just find creating shortcuts like this satisfying and occupying. One thing I need to tell you, if you have iOS 13, so a recent update of software, iOS 13 or later, on your iPad or your iPhone, then Shortcuts is already there. If you're on a slightly older one, iOS 12, well, it's there, it's free, you just have to download it separately from the App Store. Don't know why. So, what have we done? We've taken our minds off the coronavirus, and we've made something useful. Plus, it might be fiddly, and shortcuts can get really complicated very quickly, but it's still easier than writing, isn't it? Go try this out. I hope you'll enjoy it as much as I have, and I know that it will be as useful to you as it has been to me. Thanks for watching now. Oh, while you've got all this time, by the way, let's do something else. Go do that YouTubey thing of subscribing and liking. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? That'll fill a second, won't it? Thank you. Take care now, and I'll see you soon.